Okay, so moving along here, and now we're going to focus on the Venus archetype. Venus is the goddess of love, beauty, art, and music. It has something to do with impulse towards creating beauty, the impulses of the heart generally, the impulse towards pleasure. Uh, it has a lot to do with our aesthetic sensibility. It has a lot to do with our impulse towards romantic connections. Certainly, it's the planet that has the most to do with romantic intimacy, and we can look to where Venus is in the chart to get a sense for certain patterns of intimacy. It's not the only indicator, but a very important one. And Venus is the heart, and so the work of Venus has everything to do with opening the heart. And in some ways, Venus is the ultimate planet. In some ways, each of the 10 is the ultimate, but there's a really special place for Venus in the hierarchy. Venus is love, and all the mystical traditions ultimately agree that the universe at its core is made of love on some level. And we can have that experience of awakening to love, coming from our hearts in our orientation to life. Venus has a lot to do with the journey towards loving ourselves. And to me, a couple of the most important Venus alignments, these are universal archetypes. Again, the two that I'm about to name are two of the 45 fundamental channels of consciousness, where we have 45 really important spiritual lessons to learn. Venus is one of the 10 primary bands, but then there are 45 substations, and there are 9 combinations with Venus. Each are different inflections of Venus, like Venus with Pluto, Venus with Neptune, Venus with Uranus, Venus with Saturn, Venus with Mars, etc. And so I want to name Venus with Saturn here, where Saturn again can be tests and challenges. It's our flaws, it's our potential for failing, it's also the potential for mastery and wisdom and maturity. And so Venus Saturn, when it's problematic, is a combination where we can have a kind of cold or closed heart, where Saturn is like a wall around the heart. A lot of people who have Venus Saturn in their natal charts will sometimes come from families where there's a kind of coolness of the parents, where the parents keep the children at a kind of cool distance. And then later, from that modeling, someone with Venus Saturn might themselves become somewhat cool in their orientation towards others, with a kind of guarded heart. And the journey with Venus Saturn is basically from that kind of guarded heart place through work, that's Saturn, through working hard to keep the heart open. We learn to love ourselves in our flawed humanity. Venus Saturn is the journey towards loving our flaws, loving the fact that we're limited human beings. And people that have Venus Saturn are often really good at accepting the limited, flawed nature of their romantic partners. And there's a tendency with Venus Saturn to be very loyal. Saturn brings loyalty and commitment. Very loyal to the romantic partner, and a capacity to kind of hang in there through the tests and challenges and limitations and flaws of the other person or of the relationship itself. And I think we all have to come to that place of loving and accepting our limitations. And so this is one of the keys to opening the heart, is how we love ourselves with regard to our flaws. So that's one archetype I want to name. The other is Venus with Pluto, where Pluto's more the shadow. It's the animal, it's the bestial, it's the underworld, it's the dark, the taboo. And this is a place where a lot of people feel shame around their dark underworld, and around their kind of inner beast. Pluto ultimately has a lot to do with passion and living life to the fullest, and coming from a place of deep life force that informs our lives. And so Venus with Pluto, to me, has a lot to do with the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale. I sometimes call Venus Pluto the Beauty and the Beast archetype. The Rick Tarnas, my teacher, first taught me this in looking at the filmmaker Cocteau, the classic film director Cocteau, who made one of the original films of the Beauty and the Beast story. He's born with the Venus-Pluto conjunction, as I recall. And so is Victor Hugo in his Hunchback of Notre Dame story, where I think it's Esmeralda is able to find love for the hunchback. And so to me, these are stories that talk about an inner psychological challenge that we all have to learn to find the beauty place in us that can love and accept and, in a sense, tame the beast. Not tame in the sense of like controlling, but tame in the sense of bringing love and understanding to that dark beast part of ourselves, the shadow part of ourselves. And unless we learn to have love for the beast in us, we all have a beast and it's never going away. That's my experience. I don't know anybody that doesn't have a beast part of themselves. Until we learn how to love and accept that part of ourselves in a kind of unconditional way, it's very hard to grow on the spiritual path, because we're always going to have this kind of shame-based part of ourselves that we're rejecting and trying to control or shut down, that we might tend to project onto others, or we might tend to just have it totally repressed in our own psyche. And as we learn to have love for that part of ourselves, basically what tends to happen is a huge amount of life force starts to get freed up. Because in order to shut down the beast, we got to push things down, and that takes a lot of energy. When we start to feel more comfortable with the beast part of ourselves, we're able to live life more passionately with greater freedom. So this is just one dimension of Venus work, is the work of the heart, learning to have a kind of unconditional love towards ourselves is work of Venus. Ultimately has something to do with Venus with Neptune, by the way. Neptune is the sacred, the spiritual. Venus is the heart. And so Venus-Neptune is the ultimate combination of the fourth chakra opening to the spiritual heart center, where unconditional love and unconditional forgiveness is possible. And so what else do I want to say about Venus? Venus is about learning how to live an artistic life. It's about learning how to make artistic choices. Like in each moment, we should be considering, how can I honor Venus more? How can I make a choice that has more artistry to it? And there's lots of ways to do that. You can do it when you're walking down the street. You can bring a little movement to how you walk. You can bring a sense of the theater, considering yourself as an actor on the stage of life, and considering, how can I bring greater theatrical awareness to the way that I'm being in the world, so that my choices embody a sense of artistic sensibility. This to me is one of the really important parts of the spiritual journey, is honoring the fact that we're all artists, that we all can be better artists, that we can all have richer artistic lives. And like Venus-Saturn, for example, is the combination where we work in a disciplined way, Saturn, to develop certain artistic abilities. Venus with Uranus is a different energy. That's the artistic improvisatory energy, like the jazz musician who is able to be kind of more spontaneous with their artistic creativity. And so we all need to learn how to be jazz musicians and be more playful in our artistry. Anything else I want to say about Venus? Venus has to do with pleasure and honoring our need for pleasure every day. This is something that a lot of people are not good at. A lot of people are more in conflict with their need for pleasure. Even though Freud understood the pleasure principle, he's born with Venus-Pluto, by the way, the intensity of the drive for pleasure is Venus-Pluto. But especially here in the United States, where the culture emerged out of the Puritan movement, there is a kind of denial of pleasure or shame around the impulse towards pleasure. And so learning the amount of pleasure that we need every day in order to have a balanced life is an important part of the path. And of course, it's different for each person. Some people need more pleasure. Some people need less to be balanced. You can overdose on pleasure. That's hedonism. But you can certainly underdose on pleasure. And I encourage you all to go eat a piece of chocolate right now and honor Venus. Thanks.